Welcome to Fuel Your Legacy podcast, man. We are pumped to be here today. I just love waking up in the morning. Today I got up at 3:30 because that's when my son woke up. And again, man, those morning talks with your 1 month old son, there's nothing like it. And I'm just so grateful that I've been blessed with the opportunity to be able to wake up and feed him and then get started with my day. When I'm sitting there with him, I get to read my business plan, focus on my goals. I get to meditate for a little bit. I get to read my scriptures and learn exactly how I can become better and more like Christ in my life and invite him more into my life. I get to pray, and I really get to just have a good conversation with my son about the different things that we can do to become better and how to make my wife's life a little easier, right? So I'm programming him, even though he's a month old. I'm sure he doesn't understand too much, but I believe that he understands a lot more than I think he understands. And so that's why I keep doing it. I'm going to keep telling him and keep coaching him, keep having those conversations, because I cherish those moments. I'm not going to have those moments forever with my son. So that's what I did this morning. Hopefully you got off to a really great start your morning as well. Finally made it to the gym. I made it to the gym. This is my 5th day in a row, bar Sunday. So Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Made it to the gym, and I'm just on a roll, and I'm pumped about that, about my life and about what it means for me as far as the confidence that it's giving me to go out and share my message a little bit more. So just super, super excited about that. And then wanted to just give a quick shout out. I've had the guest on. I did the interview yesterday, so we're going to have that on Friday. Tristan Chiklowski, man, I am super excited for you guys to get that episode. It is crazy how similar him and I think in our lives. You just never know. He's from back east, and so you just never know how you're going to jive with people. But when we actually sat down and really had a good discussion, man, we think a lot alike. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be like two of me. Hopefully that doesn't put you off. Hopefully it's like, man, how can I get more of this guy? His thoughts are way better than mine anyways. It's just the thought patterns are similar. Yeah, super excited for him. And we're going to learn a lot about mindful awareness. Now, on Monday, I talked about what I thought mindful awareness meant. And then between Monday and Tuesday, I read one of the books that Tristan had recommended to me called Captivate by Vanessa Van Edwards, and that is what I'm going to be doing my book review on today, and it is very exciting, man. The last half of the book was a lot of stuff that I knew, which was fantastic, and I would say not that I knew it, but I had been practicing those things just because of my personality, but I can definitely see how those practices that she talks about in the second half of the book are absolutely essential for creating good conversation, creating meaningful connection, and also not stating too much when you're having conversations. So make sure that you're inviting people in and encouraging them to converse with you rather than just trying to spit up on them, learning how to be a good conversationalist. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to have a crossover into different areas of your life. And then the first part was just really, really fascinating. And that's what I'm going to share mostly about with you today. But I think if you guys haven't read that book, absolutely go read it. There's a TV show actually called Lie to Me. If you've ever seen that, and the book Captivate goes into a lot of like the facial reading, the micro expressions, all these little things, little ticks on your face so you don't even realize you're doing, but they're communicating to people, and you don't even realize that you're receiving and processing the communication from others, but you are. And so if you can learn to make it a science and learn to actually apply application to that processing and become conscious of your processing of those micro expressions when you're having conversations, man, that could just change your life in sales and parenting and in your relationships, whatever it is, to be very aware of how you're showing up. And that's why self-awareness, that's why Tristan had mentioned that we need to talk about self-awareness this week. And I had one angle on it on Monday, but it definitely, this book opened my whole idea about what it means to be self-aware and how you need to be critically self-aware about what you are and emotionally self-aware in all these different areas. And so fantastic book. I'm excited for you guys to hear this podcast, but also there's going to be a link in the show notes. There's no way I can cover everything. It's about a 7-hour book on Audible. That's how I listen and consume content. But for you guys, it will change the way you literally interact with everybody that you meet. I guarantee that. And on top of that, when you do the download, she also has a PDF that in the PDF, you can go through and kind of quiz yourself on recognizing some of these facial expressions and answering questions about understanding conversation language and stuff like that, as far as reading into it and finding out what these people are our meaning, what's the root feeling behind what they're doing. So that's super helpful. And then an aspect that I haven't even got to yet was in the book, she quotes after every chapter her online resources. So if you want to learn how to recognize these things in like videos and movies and different things, then she has courses matched up with like YouTube videos and things where you can actually go and in real time test yourself and say, okay, how many micro expressions did I catch? And then she'll have a list of all the ones that she has caught. And you can see how effective you are being and regularly test yourself at your micro expressions, especially when you're in an interaction and you're trying to have influence over somebody. It's crucial to know how you're influencing them. You've got to be able to read the feedback. You've got to be able to understand the feedback. Oftentimes, people aren't willing to give you honest feedback because they're scared of hurting your feelings. They're scared of being judged. They're scared of being too rude, whatever the case may be. They aren't really willing to give you honest feedback. And that is verbal feedback, right? The one thing that's crazy is your body language really does not lie very well. And that's what's so crazy about learning to read these micro expressions. Even though somebody might be saying one type of thing to you with their words, as you learn to read their body language from a micro expression point of view, then you're going to be able to really understand how they feel about you, how they're feeling about what you're saying, and how to proceed based on that, right? If you're bringing up a subject and really that subject is really hurting your client or your spouse or your child or whatever, but you're so unaware of how it's impacting them that you just keep on telling it, you're ultimately creating an enemy there where you could have said, oh, this story is not the right story to convey this concept that I'm trying to teach. Let's try a different story, or let's request clarification. Maybe we actually need to help them overcome whatever they're upset about. Maybe we need to say sorry. I mean, there's so many options there once you open your mind and realize how you might be impacting people. And so the idea of being self-aware is so crucial. And it just like opened my mind about how am I showing up, right? On Monday, we talked about victim versus ownership. And that is, you have to be self-aware of how you're showing up as far as for yourself and how you're interpreting and you're perceiving the world. Those are absolutely important from a self perspective. And you've got to learn to love yourself. You've got to learn to really take ownership of who you are in your life. But when you're talking about the kind of the next step of how are you really impacting others, and can you be in control, right? Or can you take ownership of how you're interacting with others? Now, some people, well, I can't control that. I can't control how people view me or what people think about me. But the reality is that if you are willing to really educate yourself on these micro expressions, at first it's going to be a little bit difficult, just like learning to drive a stick shift manual transmission car. At first, you're trying to think of pushing in the clutch, the gas, the brake, shifting, all these different things. But once you've been driving a manual long enough, it's literally second nature. And then getting into an automatic when you're not doing those things, your habits take control and you're pushing on the brake too hard and all these things because you're so used to pushing in the clutch. Everybody who's ever driven a stick and gone back to an automatic can relate with that experience right there. But that's what it is, right? When you get so skilled at these abilities, they become natural to you, and you don't have to really put a lot of conscious effort into processing the ins and outs of how somebody's reacting to you, yet you're still able to apply and really create that conversation based on the feedback you're getting. So just becoming aware of it is super important, and specifically becoming self-aware how you're interacting is incredibly important. So they talked about, she talked about a few things that I just really want to hit on. They're things that I need to work on. If you've ever watched my videos of these things or what I put on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, you'll recognize, yep, Sam actually needs to work on this aspect of his communication. But eye contact, man, I tend to, I don't know if I would say I avoid eye contact, but I definitely shift eye contact pretty regularly. And on these videos, if you watch the videos of this podcast, when I'm explaining something and an idea, I generally do not have eye contact with the camera. And that's maybe because it's just a camera and I don't realize that I'm speaking to somebody. I'd rather look at myself. So I don't have eye contact there. But what happens a lot of times when I'm speaking about these ideas, my eyes actually shut and I'm thinking inside my eyes, I'm visualizing inside my eyes what I'm saying. But what that does is it creates suspicion with the people that you're talking to. So that's something I need to work on as far as intentionally having more eye contact. And they did studies about how much eye contact is too much, how much eye contact is too little. And according to the studies they did, 61% is the correct amount of eye contact. So you should be striving to have 61% eye contact with whoever you're communicating with. Not awkwardly, right? But shift away for a second or two and then go back and have some direct eye contact, and then shift away and then go back and have some direct eye contact when you're conveying these stories. I also heard this from my speech coach. She watches me speak on stage, and she had mentioned that when I'm telling a story, which is interesting because I want to share the story with everybody, but maybe it's not as much that I want to share the story with everybody. Maybe it's I'm scared of connecting too much with one individual, and so I shift before I actually go into the emotional connection. And so that's something I'm working on. Rather than telling a story, half the story to one person and going to the next and telling the next half, and then the next and telling the next half. How do I tell the whole story to one person and really engage and emotionally connect with that one person? And if I'm willing to do that, and as I'm learning to do that, then what it does for the rest of the audience is they actually feel like they're part of that relationship, even though I'm not looking at them. So it's an interesting thing that I'm having to learn in my speaking career. So eye contact, absolutely important. Next thing is handshakes, right? Oftentimes when we meet people, depending on where it's at, obviously if you're out in the freezing cold and having your hands in your pockets, okay. But one of the body language, and this is something I've already known, but if you have your hands in your pockets when you walk up and you meet somebody, there's just immediate suspicion. They don't know what's coming out of your pockets. And from an evolutionary perspective, human beings are trained to survive. We have a deep-rooted need to survive. And so we are consciously and constantly on the lookout for danger. And so when somebody has their hands in their pockets, we are at a heightened alertment, and we're thinking, oh, that could be an enemy or a foe or somebody. It could be a friend, but for protection's sake, it could be an enemy, right? So we freak out about this in our mind, and that creates natural barriers in our life. However, if you walk up and you approach somebody with open hands, much like you would a dog almost, where they're facing towards the person you're walking up towards, maybe not completely, but facing towards them. And then when you reach out to shake your hand, don't have it under, like you're accepting a gift. Don't have it over like you're in domineering or something. Just straight up and down is the way to shake hands. And then I've never heard this exactly said it this way, but you should squeeze like you're checking for a ripe peach, right? If you're checking if the peach is ripe, you're not squeezing hard. You're just squeezing just firm enough until you see some resistance. And then that's when you stop squeezing, or else you'd have a big mess in your hand, right? And that's how to have the perfect handshake with everybody. You just squeeze until you're getting the equal amount of resistance. And then that's how hard of a handshake you should have. Some people you're going to squeeze a little bit harder because they like harder handshakes. Other people, you're going to squeeze a lot less. The one thing she does say, which I completely agree with, this is one of the most annoying things to me from a handshake perspective, is when somebody gives you like the dead limp fish handshake thing, that just the 4 fingers and they're just holding them like, oh yes, like they're supposedly royalty or so dainty that they can't have a solid handshake. That is probably one of the most annoying ways to have a handshake ever. So that was something that I've heard parts of it, but definitely put a new light on it and gave me some more insight. And then the other one is conversation sparks. So when you're thinking about a conversation, right, you can have a really dull conversation, which is just kind of generic. Hey, how you doing? Great. How's your day? Fantastic. Okay, great. Talk to you later. Bye. Right. That's a very generic conversation. Or you can have conversation sparks, as she calls them, things that are really going to heighten and make your conversation memorable. So I have actually a business partner who's really good at this. Every time you ask him how he's doing, he comes out with a new response. Every time you call him on the phone, it's like he has these little phrases that he says, what's up, Deuteronomy is one of them. It's just little things that, like, it's out of the ordinary enough that you're like, oh wow, that was a funny thing. That was something that I remember who I'm talking to. And every time you talk to this kid, my business partner, he's always using these types of words and things. He's always coming up with new ones too. It's not like he's reusing the same ones over and over. He's always coming up with new things that basically create a spark in your memory, thinking, oh wow, I'm in a conversation. Oh wow, I'm in a conversation. The cool thing is that you always are going to remember that conversation, and you're going to, especially over repetition, you're going to start thinking of him more often. When you think of good conversationalists, you're going to start thinking of him, which I just did, right? Because that's what it's like. Where if you talk to somebody else who is not super interesting, not super intriguing about what they're sharing, or the way they converse, it's not going to be that exciting. So think of conversation starters. I'm going to let her kind of go into more depth. Go listen to the book. As far as, like, she gives whole lists of examples of what would be good conversation sparks in your messaging and when you're conversing. She goes into how, like where in parties to actually stand. So you don't want to stand at the beginning of the party when people are a little flustered, not sure of their surroundings. You want to stand at the end of the party where everybody's just sitting around. And then talks about how maybe if you were standing right by the edge, like where people are coming to sit down, sit with a new person and rotate, or sit right out of the bar so that when people are coming out, they've got their drinks and they're ready to go find a seat and you can accompany them to their seat. Different strategies like that to make networking, make the most out of a networking event. So if you're a network marketing, or you just like to network period, or you're a CEO or whatever, and you like to meet new people, then this book is absolutely for you as far as teaching you how to make those introductions and those conversations as natural and seamless as possible. And that I love that aspect of what she taught in the book, because it's something that I've struggled with. I love conversing with people once I've started, but learning to start the conversation. I read another book, I don't know, probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, 190, it was maybe 92 ways to start a conversation with somebody or something like that. Or 92 ways to talk to anyone. I don't know what it was, but something like that. And it was good, but I don't think that it was as helpful as this book as far as practical application and things to really construct a conversation out of. Because it's not just the introduction to the conversation, but how do you construct the conversation so that there's meaning and that you're actually progressing through to a point and to an end. And so that's something that I really valued out of this book, and something I'm gonna have to work on. As far as creating more conversation sparks, being willing to initiate a conversation easily. Another example that I just heard from another colleague yesterday is he was at the swimming pool or the rec center with his family, and he was just sitting out there waiting for his family, and he likes to meet new people, so he's looking around looking for somebody to talk to. There's somebody sitting over there in like dress clothes, playing on his phone, and clearly had not gone there to participate in any of the activities at the rec center. And so he's sitting there thinking, racking his brain, how can I start a conversation with this guy that's not going to be awkward? He's definitely involved in his phone, whatever. And finally he says, hey, so are you the chauffeur? Right? So he inferred that obviously you weren't here to do anything at the rec center. So why are you here? Oh, you're waiting for somebody. Okay, so are you the chauffeur? So he asks him, hey, are you the chauffeur? Right? And that conversation sparked a really good conversation that led to further connections, and they're excited to see what they can do and help with each other. But once my business partner initiated the conversation, then the guy was like, oh yeah, I am. And he came over and he started talking. He was excited to engage. A lot of times other people, they're excited to engage. They just are probably in the same situation as you, not knowing how to engage. And so if you can take that off of the table and say, okay, look, I'll take the ring. I will take the Lord of the Rings reference there. I'll take responsibility for the beginning of the conversation. A lot of people really enjoy conversing. They really enjoy hearing about other people's lives, and they really enjoy sharing about their life even more. And so the main thing is, are you willing to take the initiative to start the conversation? Are you willing to take the initiative to make sure that you actually are getting into those conversations so you can have those experiences? And that's what my business partner did really well that time. And it's something we are all learning and growing on. But this book, Captivate, delves really deep into how to make that a seamless process and done quickly. So if you haven't read it, go get it. Again, the link's going to be here to the Amazon audiobook and just the paperback book here in the show notes, so you have access to that. But one last thing that I am going to implement into my business, and I already have started. I've got my web developers working on it, and that is to create funny button titles for your website, right? So every website has different buttons that you can push and go to different pages, links and things like that. Well, they did a study, right? They did a bunch of different ones, and the funniest links got the most traffic, right? And the best one they found was "Do not press this button," right? So they just put a button on there that said "Do not press," and then it led to a sales funnel. And that sales funnel ended up bringing them more business than any of their other funnels combined, right? And that one thing that said, don't touch this, don't push the button, stay out of this, do not enter, right? Because of our mind, it's like an interesting way to ask a question. So if I say, don't do this, then your mind says, okay, don't do this, but why? And then that's what's crazy, is that then that person instigates the question in their own mind. And then when they instigate the question in their own mind, now they're super, super curious and they have to click the button. It's like trying to say no to a plate of cookies that's sitting there for a super long time. Like most people, they're going to end up eating a cookie, even if they've been on a diet or trying to not to eat them. if you're sitting there looking at them saying, oh, I can't eat that, don't eat it, then that's what you're going to get more of. And so when you say on your buttons, on your website, things like that, where it's like, don't push this, or I'm not smart enough. Well, I don't know if I would say that one. Like for instance, one of the buttons that I'm going to change on mine is I'm inviting people to take a short money quiz. It's 5 questions, right? But then it's going to say, no, I already know it all, right? And so then when people click, oh, I already know it all, it's going to, it's kind of a slapstick way of getting people to realize, hey, look, let's just do it anyways. But getting people into these areas where they're thinking, oh, I don't need this, or I can't have this. This is restricted access. I'm going to put that on one of my links, restricted access to a page that I want people to go to. And I don't know what page it's going to go to right now, but I just think, how can we create curiosity in the people who are viewing our content? And once we create that curiosity, how can we help them get the information that we need? Because it's not necessarily about trying to hoodwink somebody or manipulate them into something. It's about this information that we have. It's valuable and we want to share it. And so if that's the case, it's valuable and you want to share it, it's going to be valuable for this person to receive it, then how can we get them to actually see it? Because a lot of times people will say no to things because of word association. They feel like they already know it. They already have all the information. Because they feel that way, then they're unwilling to go and learn more, because they don't like to fail. They don't like to lose. They don't like to have to learn new things. And so what we do, and what I'm going to do with my buttons, is try and figure out how to invite people in by challenging what they believe about themselves, so they can actually grow and accept new information. And that's where I'm going with it. So those are just a few of the things that I got out of the book, but obviously there's a lot more in there. I'm excited for you guys to read it, create discussion, and really talk about how this book could help you guys, and different areas in your life, how you could apply it. So I'm going to leave that there, and that's going to be the end of this podcast. But really quick, if you would like access again to the Ed Milet recording that I have of the conference that he came and spoke at, I have access to that, and I have it online, so I can just send you a link. But direct message me. I'd love to send you a link to that and be able to share his content with you. He's phenomenal. It's helped me in my business already in just 2 or 3 days. It's changed how I'm going to move forward in a lot of cases. And so I want to give you guys all that opportunity to hear that and see how that can impact your life and make your family life better, your business life, all of those things. That's the first thing. Second thing, please go check out my website, samknickerbocker.com. And there you'll be able to click and add reviews and comments there as far as things that you think we could improve on or make it more user-friendly for you guys to get all the information and content that you guys would like. There are a lot of updates going in still. Anybody who's ever built a website knows that it's a constant work in progress. It's never going to be finished, but it is workable right now, and probably half the links work if I'm being completely open there. And so that's something to look into. Also, subscribe to this podcast and share it with other people. If you guys are getting value, if this is resonating with you and you think, man, these concepts really need to be shared, just put the subscribe button and then take a screenshot, share it on social media. And when you do, tag me in it, and I will then give you a shout out. And if you're a business person and you want me to shout out your business, that's fine. Just direct message me and let me know what it is you do and what you're passionate about. And I'd love to share that with you, because from a legacy perspective, I want you to be known, and I want you to be able to get your message out there so that people can know what you're passionate about. I want you to be able to create your legacy, and I'm committed to doing everything I can to help you create your legacy the fastest way possible, giving you the strongest financial foundation to make that last for as long as you want it to last. And if that's only a few years, great. But if you want it to last multi-generationally, I'd love to help you figure that out as well from a financial perspective. So that being said, I'm super pumped for the Friday episode to go live. It should be live at 7 a.m. on Friday morning. Tristan Chiklowski. Man, this is tough. These Polish last names, man. Yeah, Tristan Chiklowski is our guest there, and we've already started doing some of the Facebook and Instagram marketing for that, but definitely go check that out. It's Friday morning, 7 a.m. It'll be live, and you'll be able to hear kind of his opinion of self-awareness. And he is he studies stuff out so much that he has a lot of really, really good words of wisdom. I'm so glad that I was able to have him on the show. And to be honest, I'm going to have him on the show probably 3 or 4 more times talking about different topics, because this is just one topic that he's very, very knowledgeable in. But just through the discussion, I found that he's very knowledgeable in a lot of other things that I think are necessary to share, good habits, mindsets, and behaviors that are really going to help you build the legacy that you want for your future. So with that being said, we are excited for you to share this with others and to get value out of this. Comment, share, create a conversation there, and then we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.